Here we are again with the advanced grid maker. Page is opened and we've got the default settings, 13 parts and 9 bytes looking down here. Let's change the colour. Blue. Click column coding, standard grid, and there you go, blue. Maybe not the best colour for showing the overs and unders, but let's change that back to Peru for the time being. Of course, I could have used a different shadow colour. Yeah, I think that's easy to see. Now, standard Turk's head, as we've got here, goes over 1, under 1, over 1, under 1, etc. Let's do a bit of experimentation. If we go up to this column coding, it says over, under. Let's change that. Let's change it to over, over, under, under. Don't forget, these need to be uppercase. Click column coding, standard grid. If you look closely now, it goes over 2, under 2. Apart from right at the top there, but that's because of the number of parts. But if you look at the main pattern in the middle, it is over 2, under 2. Just thought I'd show you that. For the time being, I'm going to go back to just over, under. And we're back to a standard Turk's head. What about multi-strand Turk's heads? Well, let's expand this Turk's head we've got here, 13 parts and 9 bytes. Oh, incidentally, something I must show you. If you go down to the image here, if you hover over the bottom right hand corner and drag, you can change the number of parts and bytes that way. If I go up now, it still says 13.9, but down here it shows 18 parts, 15 bytes. So you can fool around with that if you want to make a knot narrower or wider. Try it. It's not an exact way of doing things, but it can give you some ideas. I do find actually that on my tablets, where I often run this software, I can't grab the bottom right hand corner and move it. I can on my main PC because I've got a mouse. Back to our multi-strand Turk's heads. We've got 13 parts and 9 bytes. If we double the number of parts and bytes, we will get a 2-strand Turk's head. Of course, both these numbers are no longer co-prime, but we've got to use 2 strands, don't forget. And if we're going to use 2 strands, probably better if we have 2 colours. Let's have blue and white. Separate your colours with a space. And now we're using 2 strands. Let's change this now to over, over, under, under. And you need to do this when you're increasing the number of strands. With 2 strands, over, over, under, under. 3 strands will be over, 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 under, under, under. Let's see what happens with this. Click on column coding, standard grid. Let's take a look. There we go. We've actually got there. Yes, 26, 18 bytes. Yep, that's right. Just checking that it has updated properly. And if we go further down, there we go, look, there are 2 strands, strand 1 and strand 2. And strand 1 instructions followed by strand 2 instructions. And although we can scroll down here to get all the instructions, I sometimes find on the tablet that if I've got a large Turk's head and it's got a number of strands, the bottom of it gets chopped off. I don't have the scroll bar, but that's no big issue. if I go up, I can still get my instructions from this half cycle information here. There we go, half cycle. We're using blue from A1 to B4, and if I click along quickly, see, on the 19th half cycle we've started on the white chord. Let's finish that. Whoops, let's go back. There we go, there's the finished knot. And if you want to know what that really would look like once it's tightened up, now this strand gap size comes into its own. Let's change that to 0. Column coding, standard grid. There we go, that's what the final knot will look like when it's tightened up. That is quite useful. If you recall in the introduction video, tying with one strand, if we change that gap size to 0, it looks a bit messy, but this really comes into its own here. Let's try a standard one strand Turk's head again. I don't know, 7 parts, 5 bites. Change this back to over under because we're only using one strand. I'll change this back to 0.125 for the strand gap size. Did I click column coding? I have now anyway. Standard grid. Let's see what we've got. There we go, 7 parts, 5 bytes. The last example, I doubled the number of strands. Well, let's make this one 3 strands. So we'll treble the number of parts and treble the number of bytes. Let's change this to 21 and this one to 15. You notice even though I'd left the colours blue and white, it only used the first colour for the single strand Turk's head. Now we've trebled the parts and bytes, so we need over, 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 under, under, under. Column coding, standard grid, and we've got blue and white. I really want 3 colours, don't I? So let's go back. Blue, white, red. Column coding, standard grid. There we go, 3 colours, red, white and blue. Very patriotic. Well, for us in the UK anyway. Maybe France. No, let's not get into that. I'll change the strand gap size again to 0. See how that looks. That's not bad, is it? Yeah, I quite like that. Next lesson we'll look at row coding and making gaucho knots. But if you actually take a look, as I mentioned in the introduction, to these documents at the top, you should have a feel by now and some confidence in using the Advanced Grid Maker. Have a look at those documents and start experimenting. It's really good fun. Thanks for watching.